Today, we're going to be showing you how to coat over tiles. First step in doing this is to prep the surface. Like any floor, grinding is that first step. So we're going to grind the tiles, rough up the surface, and our goal is to remove the glazing off the top of the tiles. The tiles that don't have glazing are generally like, I don't know what you call it, but like a natural texture, so they've got roughness to it. So you want to grind that out. Most tiles are going to have either glazing or a coating on the top of them, which you want to remove and give some sort of mechanical adhesion for the epoxy to stick to. So the setup I have here is a fan-dangled piece of material I made. It's a couple MDF boards glued together with some epoxy resin thickener, and then I've glued the tiles down on top using a similar mix but with ceramic in it as well. As a first-time tiler, I've done pretty well to line them up, considering I have no walls to go up against.
Alright, I'm going to start from this left-hand side and work backwards that way.
So, we're grinding this floor and realized pretty quickly that the more we ground, the less we did. The diamonds are what's called glazed. Main reason being is on this grinder at the moment I have yellow segments. I thought yellow I might get away with, I do not. Which may work on some tiles, but unfortunately these tiles are just hard enough where they produce virtually no dust, so they don't wear any of the matrix down, the metal, so it doesn't release any new diamonds, meaning it stops grinding after a while. So I'm switching out to purple diamonds, which are even softer and made for even harder floors. Finished grinding, chipped out a few more tiles. On the cub, I've switched out to 3 diamonds rather than using all 9 purples. And then to finish up some of the corners, I switched back to using the 9-inch grinder with the white head on it. It has about 12 segments, coffins, and that was just to use to clean up. When grinding tiles, you want to be careful of tiles chipping, such as this, as they can chip in quite large segments, which can be dangerous. So make sure you're wearing gloves, glasses, knee pads even, steel cap boots and jeans. Long sleeve shirts and jumpers will also help to protect against chips that might fly back at you. First step now is fixing the tiles that we've chipped. So obviously chipped tiles are a bad thing and we want to try and avoid them when grinding. The method we'll be doing today is using a runny sand, similar to our mortar mix, just you keep adding more epoxy. And then once you've used either a trowel or a spatula to fill in the broken tiles, you'll leave them set for half hour or so, just enough to where they're tacky, and then you'll screed over the whole surface. So tacky for that should be about half hour to an hour, depending on how cold it is and what epoxy hardener and epoxy you're using. With this, I haven't grouted any of the tiles, which means my ceramic screed will run out the grout lines along these edges. So to avoid that, I'm just going to use a bit of tape to stop that from happening. I'm just going to put a bit of tape along each of the grout lines, just to keep that screed in. We let that cure for 24 hours, enough so when we grind over it, it's not coming up. And what we're doing tomorrow is we're just going to get to that light white scratch of the whole surface. But that's tomorrow thing. Today we're just going to worry about screeding. So the mix ratio I used for this is roughly 2 parts A to 1 part B, which is exact, and then the rough part is the 6 parts of sand. I had about 900 ml of epoxy and I've added in about 1800 ml of sand. Well, you want like a runny sort of wet sand. So if you went with mortar, it'd be too dry. You want it to self-level and wet underneath. This isn't the screed, this is just repairing tiles. So this is just filling in holes, and this is sort of the mix you want when you fill in holes. So if you're not using putty or ceramic, you'll probably be using a mixture like this. And just like doing mortar, you'd like a wet trowel just so it doesn't stick to it. So not wet, but not dry. You just want it slick. Something exactly like that. You just want enough to where when you go over the top, it's not going to sink down again, or to where you're going to pull it out. The more you play with sand, the more likely you are to pull it out or mess it up. So touching it once or twice is enough. And then all your issues you can fix later with ceramic or putty, or just coating straight over it, especially if it's closed. These should close up on their own, considering how wet they are. If not, the ceramic will fix that. Time to screed. Okay.
So what you want it looking like is you want it looking more like this. You're going to sand the next day. Depends on the method that you're taking. Because Matt's going to sand or light grind or sand this afterwards, it's better to have the product proud, which means it's sitting more up, than flush. So that's what he's doing now. Now he's having to overload it a little bit. That's only because we're losing it down the grout onto the tiles. From here down, it's good. Yeah, that's it. That's good, that'll work. Like that, that's what I'll do it. So if it drops too low, if it drops to a certain point, we can sand it or lightly grind it flat, that's fine. If it drops too low, after we've sounded it or lightly grout it, we may need to do a scratch coat.
So, on my hands and knees, labouring out for you guys, we've applied our screed coat of ceramic. So that is 2 parts epoxy to 1 part epoxy part B, and then 3 parts ceramic. So equal parts ceramic to equal parts resin. From there, we screeded it out, so leaving about 1 mil thickness of screed, and just pushing it into all those grout marks to try and fill them up. As this is a control test and an example I made up, I left out the grout to make the example worst case scenario for you. As you can see, the grout lines are starting to shadow through. Depending on how deep they get, they may need to be screeded over or scratched over tomorrow just to hide them properly, especially the ones down here where it's starting to run out from the edge. But the rest of them should be able to just grind over them tomorrow, and once we start coating, it'll look perfect. Tomorrow's job is give this a light grind once it's cured, and we'll put a prime coat over the top. So today, we're going to give this a quick skim grind. Pretend I haven't done it yet, just to clean up the surface, ready for our scratch coat, as some of our screed coat did soak away. So just fill in the rest of the tile lines, we're just going to put another scratch coat on top of this. We've ground the floor and we're looking to now screed those final tile lines that are still showing through. What we're going to do is what's called a ceramic scratch coat. So just a very thin layer of ceramic and clear epoxy, just enough to fill in those grout lines to where it'll cure and they'll be completely flat with the rest of the tile. We'll get to that now. We'll come back tomorrow to prime coat. My mix ratio for the ceramic and the epoxy is 3 parts epoxy, so 2 to 1, and then 3 to 4 parts ceramic. I'm going to do 4 parts today just to keep it a little bit stiffer so it doesn't run as much. Anyway. So yesterday we gave this a quick skim coat or scratch coat of ceramic, and today we've just come back and ground off that scratch coat, leaving only what was in the deep parts of such as like the grout and whatnot, and the rest has been smoothed off with the grinder. So today we're gonna go over what we've now ground and coat with a base coat or a prime coat. You're just sort of coating over concrete like anything else. The main thing you want is, like, after you've ground, you want to ensure that there's no grout lines left. So here we're 99% sure it's flat, whereas here where there's a little bit of what would you call it, scratch coat still showing through, means we didn't quite get deep enough. And it's especially prevalent here where the scratch coat's completely showing through. That means we didn't grind down completely enough. So those will likely shadow through to the prime coat and possibly further. So just depending on how bad they are and how well we coat, that might disappear with this prime coat, or it might shadow through to the very last top coat. As with any pour, you give yourself a nice little puddle to fill your roller up. Pour a line out. Keep your bucket on the floor because you might as well not take it off. You're coating the floor anyway. It's a little thick, I won't lie, but that's all right. Thick kind of works for what we're trying to do. The only thing I would do is lower the thinners just a touch and increase the amount you're putting on the floor, but that's about it. So see all my grind marks? The more I add, the more they hide. So right now I might have enough for going over I'm probably at 8 squares right now per liter, so I'll add a bit more to get down to 6 to 5. It's better to have less and add more later than add too much and have to take it off. It's a hell of a lot easier to add more than it is to take it off. Yeah, that's it. The other thing I would recommend, usually after you've done quite a lot of patching, screeding, scratching, filling with sand, anything like that, I usually recommend going over with a polyvac or a sander. Just take out any of the high points again in your prime coat. So like this one, we've just got a couple of the grind marks still there, and there's a bit of fluff and whatnot from the roller and dust from the environment. So we'll go over with polyvac tomorrow and that'll knock all that down and we'll get a nice flat floor. Today, what we're going to be doing is sanding after our prime coat. This is just to get all of our high points as low as possible and bring all of our low points as close to the top as possible. This just ensures that most of the grout lines are hidden, and once we start coating, they shouldn't shadow through or go through to the top coat. When you're sanding over tiles, what we're looking for is sort of what we were looking for with the grinding. So we want the whole surface to be as even and flat looking as possible. So like with grinding yesterday, where we were trying to grind down all the grout lines and the high points of the surface to get as low as possible, we're doing the same thing today with the sander or the polyvac. So we're trying to sand the top of the tiles and sort of bring down the top surface up to where the grout is. So we're bringing down that top surface to match with the grout, which we've done in most places. We've just sort of missed the mark with some of these places. So we might be able to see some of the ghosting show through onto our flake and top coats, which will be a good example. So pour out that. Once you've done the prime coat and sanded your prime coat, you're pretty much done with the tiles. You shouldn't really have to do anything else. The only thing you'd keep in mind when you're priming the tiles is if you do see anywhere that looks quite bad, like over here, this isn't super bad as I did see scratches in the middle of it, but if it actually looked like a divot or there was a hole there, that's when you'd come in and do another scratch coat or even worse, a screed coat, just to ensure you've got everything. Because if one place is bad, you more than likely missed more than just that place. So you might as well do the whole floor. This epoxy is still just a little thick, so my roller lines are going to stick around for a little bit. Which is why we tell you to go thinner on a hyperflake, because you'd see those. Whereas ultraflake, it'll just hide them straight away. Flaking! So it's the next day. We've come back to our floor, and on this side we have our plain coat, a little thin, so it's got a couple of roller lines, my bad. We'll just put a top coat on and that'll fix it right up. The heritage side, where we've got our flake and a whole lot of glitter, talk to our marketing department about that. What we're going to do today is broom it like any other day and any other system. So after that prime coat, it's just back to any normal system. So that's what we're doing. So that's how we coat over tiles. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. And I'll catch you next time.